Jill Biden has tested positive for COVID-19 just in time for the start of election season, which brings up many questions about what does this mean? Why is it being reported and where does it go? Certainly, Jill Biden having COVID-19 is not the most newsworthy thing, and they would not need to release the information. So why do it? No idea. But now everyone's talking about Alex Jones because not that long ago, Alex said that he spoke with a TSA employee who said that by mid-September or around now, they would be bringing back mask mandates. And that's been the big question about politics entering 2024. Tucker Carlson says they're not going to do the mask mandate thing. They did that. It won't work again. Others have speculated. We here at Timcast have speculated they will try to bring back some kind of mandate or lockdown, but we don't know for sure. We do know that in many areas they've already brought back masks, and there's a conversation about bringing back mask mandates. But again, we don't know. Now, let me clarify something for all of you when it comes to Alex Jones, as he is trending because he said that a TSA agent told him some things. The media ran full speed in a desperate attempt to debunk the narrative from Alex Jones, saying that there are no known plans from the TSA to bring back mandates and that it was all just one big conspiracy theory. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's just variables. That's it. So let's just break it down this way. Alex Jones talks to a guy who works for the TSA who says they gave us a briefing on mask mandates. Alex says, I fear they're going to come back. The media then claims it's a conspiracy theory, but it could be much simpler than that. Plans change. The guy was wrong. The real story is Alex Jones talked to a guy and here's what he thinks. Prepare accordingly. You typically don't operate in your life, or you shouldn't, as if there is a singular guarantee as to what happens tomorrow or the day after. Now, we have our routines. We know things are certainly more likely than others, but it's this simple. What is the social benefit? What is the benefit to your life from Alex Jones coming out saying that he talked to this guy? You can prepare accordingly. That's it. And maybe there will be and maybe there won't be, but you want to take the precautions because they may try to bring back mask mandates or lockdowns. Now, here's what I think about the Jill Biden stuff. We'll read through this, but I'll give you the preliminary thoughts. Even if she was sick, they don't need to come out and say this. So there's got to be, in my opinion, some kind of political benefit to this. And there's a few questions. Do they reintroduce the fear of COVID just before the 2024 election cycle so that they can justify universal mail-in voting expansion? Perhaps. Tucker Carlson's right. They don't go the full route of locking everything down. The speculation we've had is that maybe they just say, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to issue guidelines. Look, Jill Biden got sick. Joe might get sick. And it's a serious thing. So we're going to issue guidelines. You don't have to quarantine, but because some of you might, based on our guidelines, we need to expand universal mail-in voting. We need to make sure that that workplaces can't discriminate against those who seek to quarantine for their own health and safety, but that you don't have to. Based on this guidance, some businesses may just institute private remote working policies or mandates. And we have a list of many of these companies that have done so. But again, I'm not entirely sure. The other big question is, does this affect Joe Biden? And could this be how they get him off the ballot to swap in Gavin Newsom? Maybe not. I don't know, honestly, but there is some speculation, some discussion about what would remove Trump from the ballot. Nate Silver's got a comment, some comments out now saying that if Joe Biden suffers a Mitch McConnell moment, that could give Trump his second term. Considering the pollster's opinion here, okay, what if Joe Biden is incapacitated by COVID? Now they get COVID fear and they might say Joe Biden can't handle running for a second term, or they could use it as an excuse so that he doesn't have to campaign. And they just say, oh, yeah, he's unavailable on the campaign trail. He's ill. Personally, I think if they go with a Joe Biden is ill narrative, it weakens his chances substantially. And if Joe Biden has a McConnell moment, that's what they're calling it, I guess. Yeah, he's in trouble. He's in trouble. Let's start with the news here from CNN. First Lady Jill Biden tests positive for COVID-19. They say that she has mild symptoms. President Joe Biden has tested negative. The diagnosis has upended the First Lady's plans to begin teaching the fall semester at Northern Virginia Community College on Tuesday. She is working with the school to ensure her classes are covered by a substitute. Dr. Biden, I love that they call her Dr. Biden, who remains at the family's home in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, typically teaches on Tuesdays and Thursdays. An administration official told CNN Monday that there are no changes to the White House COVID protocols or the president's schedule at this time. The diagnosis of the First Lady, 72, comes amid a busy week for Joe Biden, who delivered a Labor Day speech in Philadelphia earlier in the day. The president is scheduled to present the Medal of Honor to an Army captain in a White House ceremony Tuesday before departing for the G20 summit in India on Thursday. Well, I really do hope for the best for these individuals. Political differences aside, I don't want anybody to get sick and get hurt. We'll see. But now we have this from Nate Silver. Could it be the mask mandates are coming back and this is how they will scare people? Or could it be that they're going to give Biden a McConnell moment? Maybe COVID could be the factor. Take a look at this. A McConnell moment for Biden could give Trump a second term. Nate Silver, the founder of 538, argued Monday that President Biden's age is a legitimate concern for voters in the 2024 election, warning that former President Trump could be one. Biden has a McConnell moment away from a second term. If the expert class doesn't understand that Biden's age is both a real concern for voters and a valid concern, they'd better be prepared for getting a second Trump term instead. He wrote in his newsletter. This election is probably going to be close, and Trump might be only one Biden has a McConnell moment away from winning. The reference to Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell comes in the wake of the GOP leader's second public freeze-up. Now, what I said on Twitter was basically, when Joe Biden has some kind of mental episode, he just keeps rambling and saying words. So, from a distance, he appears to be completely with it, despite the fact that he's not. There's one viral clip going around where Joe Biden's just rambling incoherently. He's like, you got a kid, he was like, it's an interlocutor. And then, it's on the moon and he's wondering what's there. And I'm watching this just like Joe Biden, literally, his plan is to just keep saying words. I'm willing to bet they briefed him on this and said, Mr. President, if at any point you become confused or disoriented, just keep talking, because then people will clap anyway and it's going to over their heads. Maybe they'll think I just didn't hear him properly. But if you freeze up like Mitch McConnell, now you got a viral video problem. They go on to say, in late July, the 81-year-old senator similarly froze for about 20 seconds during his weekly press conference. We saw it again. Now, the issue with Mitch McConnell and what we saw the last time, he's gripping the sides of the podium very, very tightly. Where are my hands? Very tightly. And he's like swaying a little bit. I think he's probably lightheaded and on the verge of fainting. And then his aide comes up and she's like, or the staffer, she says, like, did you hear the question? He goes, yes. And I think he's just putting all of his energy trying to keep himself standing. It's terrifying, man. Then you got Dianne Feinstein in the wheelchair, totally oblivious to the fact that she was hospitalized, confused to what's going on, giving power of attorney to her daughter. Yeah, we got a problem with people who are incapable of doing their jobs. But here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Mask mandates may be coming back. And maybe that's why they're reporting this news. Again, I'll stress. They could have just, not said anything. They could have said that Joe Biden is going to take a few days off and start late. They could have literally said nothing and no one would have thought twice about it. But they decided to put out a statement saying she's got COVID. Okay, well, I don't know. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's a routine. Hey, guys, she has COVID. Fox News reports Fauci concerned people won't comply if masking recommendations return. I hope they abide. Several businesses, schools, hospitals have reinstated mask mandates. In a Saturday interview, former White House chief medical advisor Dr. Anthony Fauci spoke out in defense of masking up amid today's rising COVID cases. In the event that masks are again recommended, he is concerned that people will not abide by the recommendations. I would hope that if we get to the point that the volume of cases is such and organizations like the CDC recommends, CDC does not mandate anything, recommends that people wear masks, I would hope that people abide by that recommendation and take into account the risks to themselves and their families, Fauci told CNN. And they go on to mention his past. And yeah, we all get what Fauci did and who he is. When you're talking about the effect on the pandemic as a whole, the data is less strong, Fauci said. But when you talk about an individual basis or someone protecting themselves, there's no doubt there's many studies that show that there is an advantage to masks. The Cochrane study, led by 12 researchers from esteemed universities around the world, compared the use of medical surgical masks to wearing no masks. Now, hold on there. This is where things get interesting. Fauci wants us all to wear masks. And we have this story from The Independent. Dr. Fauci refutes study claiming that masks don't work as COVID concerns rise. We've heard this from quite some time. In fact, I do believe YouTube has removed their policy on masking advice. Now, as always, I recommend you talk to a doctor about what's right for you, because I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I got no idea. But I do know that there is a debate over whether or not masks are effective, and that YouTube for a long time banned the statement that masks did not work. I do believe they've removed that rule, and it's been gone for some time, so I'm not entirely sure. But now we have this story. A viral clip from CNN where Smirkonish, who's more of like a centrist figure, says this study shows that masks didn't do anything. Fauci refutes this, saying, but there are other studies. They say this from The Independent. Dr. Anthony Fauci pushed back against a report claiming that masks do not work to stop the spread of COVID. In a CNN interview, the former director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease said he's concerned about anti-masking rhetoric, given that COVID cases are rising in the U.S. I am concerned that people will not abide by recommendations. And we're not talking about mandates or forcing anybody, you know, the Fauci voice. But when you have a situation where the volume of cases in society gets to a reasonably high level, those who are elderly and those with underlying conditions are going to be more susceptible to and vulnerable. If they get infected, to get severe disease leading to hospitalization. So I would hope that if in fact we do get to the point where organizations like CDC recommend that people wear masks, I would hope that they abide by the recommendation and take into account risk to themselves and their families. Smirkonish then asked Fauci about a study published by the Cochrane Library earlier this year, which raised questions about the efficacy of masks. He directed Dr. Fauci's attention to an opinion piece published by the New York Times in response to the review titled, "The Mask Mandates Did Nothing. Will Any Lessons Be Learned?" That's actually really interesting. The New York Times put that out. The piece quotes lead author Tom Jefferson, an Oxford epidemiologist, saying, there is just no evidence that masks make any difference, full stop. He went on to say that mask mandates imposed early in the pandemic were influenced by non-randomized studies, flawed observational studies. They say randomized controlled trials are thought by many to be the gold standard for medical research. In the study conclusion, the authors wrote that the pooled results of randomized controlled trials did not show a clear reduction in respiratory viral infection with the use of medical and surgical masks. Smirkonish asked Dr. Fauci how Americans should think about masks in light of the Cochrane Library analysis. How do we get beyond that finding of that particular view? Fauci responded by saying that other research has highlighted the efficacy of masks. When you're talking about the effect of the epidemic or the pandemic as a whole, the data are less strong. But when you talk about an individual basis of someone protecting themselves or protecting themselves from spreading it to others, there's no doubt that there are many studies that show there is an advantage to wearing masks, he said. Now, I'm not a big fan of Fauci. I think the dude did many things wrong. But I do want to say, in this instance, I half agree with him. And it's kind of simple. Smirkonish is referencing one single study. That's it. And it's fair. Assess it and respond to it. But Fauci says there are many other studies that show masks were effective. He's right. It's fairly split. I know it's a very tribal issue. My issue with everything is the mandates, government forcing people to do things. In this instance, Fauci is saying, well, I see studies that say we should do this. Well, okay, whatever. I don't know, man. I don't trust the government. I don't trust the CDC. I don't trust the World Health Organization. But who am I? I'm not a doctor. I always recommend that you find someone that you do trust that does know about these things and can answer all of your questions. And that's the most important thing. In this instance, though, a lot of people are coming out and being like, aha, the study says masks don't work and Fauci is cornered. And it's like, yeah, but come on, man. If someone came to you and said, here's one single study saying one thing, you'd be like, well, if it goes against what I say, I want more evidence than that. So in this instance, I think we have something clear to say. If there is not clear evidence because there is disputed studies, I'm wondering, one, how many studies say masks don't work? How many of them say they do work? And then maybe the answer is we should not recommend their use with conflicting data, but there's no reason, unless there's data, that if you want to wear it, right? I guess that's it. One of my concerns is that there is evidence. There are some studies that argue wearing masks could increase certain other illnesses because it gets dirty and it's gross. Maybe disposable masks make sense. My view has always been kind of, look, man, when you talk, you spit. Yeah, I know you're not intentionally spitting on people, but, it's flying around. And the mask does prevent that. So it probably does. I just kind of feel like it's fairly obvious. If there are diseases, I'm not saying COVID, but if there's any kind of disease or illness transmitted through saliva and like getting in your face or getting in your hands and getting in your nose and getting in your mouth, then I'd imagine a mask would help reduce that. That's it. I don't know. Seems pretty simple to me. But the question is always about mandates. Are they going to reinstitute mandates across the board? Forbes writes, will COVID mask mandates return? Here's where they're making a comeback. At the same time that we have all this reporting, and it's fair to point out, a lot of people are saying that Lionsgate, while they're listed in this, has recently, many people have said they've rescinded their mandates. So it's hard to know exactly what the future has in store for us, but this is from September 2nd. That, look, as I say always, it's the mandates that are the problem as far as I'm concerned. But Joe Biden also recently came out saying he wants to fund another vaccine. You got to watch out for some of this fake news. I think there is reason to believe they want to bring back some kind of COVID regulation, mandate, or otherwise. The theory that we have is that they'll issue recommendations, as I already stated, recommendations that will give them justification for their voting policies. Why not? Why not exploit a crisis? The interesting thing is, with the vaccine rollout, the question will be whether or not they will mandate this. If the CDC and the World Health Organization issue recommendations, then you'll get Fauci and Biden or whoever else falling on that we're not mandating anything. But private companies will start to do it. And they will say, based on this guidance, YouTube will then impose rules once again on all of us. And oh boy, here we go. But I don't know. I don't know exactly what will happen. But I always think you got to watch out for the private sector on this one. You have this from Newsweek, mask mandate update. California officials address rising COVID cases. In this article, they talk about how they may, in California, bring back mask mandates. So I don't know. Honestly, that's my question to you. Why do you think this is in the news again? Well, I got to say, with Joe Biden getting COVID, I'm wondering if that's their two birds with one stone. We keep talking about how they want Joe Biden off the ticket. They don't want him to run. They don't think he can win. They want Gavin Newsom. I don't know that Gavin Newsom can win either. I certainly think he'd probably do better than Joe Biden. As Nate Silver pointed out, Joe Biden's too old. He's one McConnell moment away from losing. Gavin Newsom doesn't have that problem. Joe Biden being so old is a factor. Now you got another Wall Street Journal poll showing that most people think the economy has gotten worse under Joe Biden. They need someone else. The temporary placement of Joe Biden, the single term, was enough when people were mad about Donald Trump and you had COVID, but you're not going to have those same benefits. So maybe Joe Biden gets sick. That's it. He gets sick and says, I have to realize I'm not a young man anymore and I can't do this. I think that's bad for Democrats across the board. It shows weakness. Bringing in Gavin Newsom might help, but California is in a really bad spot. If Gavin Newsom ends up being the Democrat nominee, just think about the commercials. They're going to be like, human waste on the ground, defecation, theft, robberies. Is this what you want for America? It'll be everywhere. Literally everywhere. Commercials will be running videos of people doing awful things. And they'll blur some of it. But those crime sprees, they're going to use that. And that's Gavin Newsom's legacy. If he can't clean up his own state, can he really help this country? And that's the narrative you will get. This is where things get interesting because I understand there's a lot of people, Trump's too old too. But Trump has that anti-establishment base. There's a hilarious article that I quoted this weekend, and it said Trump's status as an anti-hero is making him invincible. And they used a little cartoon image of Trump wearing a cowboy hat and a bandana like some kind of, bandito. And I'm like, yes, a Western bandito anti-hero. That's the Trump image. But maybe they're right. Maybe Trump's image as an anti-hero is exactly what he needed and what he needs and all he needs. Because people look at the establishment and they say, it is crooked, it is broken, give me anything else. But we'll see. We're a divided nation. And it's hard to know what the strategy is going to be. Maybe Jill Biden gives Joe COVID and Joe gets sick and bows out, but I think that shows weakness. The theory that I'm banking on, well, I shouldn't say theory because I really doubt it will happen, but I think it's the best path that the establishment machine has is that Joe Biden suffers some kind of McConnell moment and then falls over and Gavin Newsom runs to save the day. And then Gavin Newsom resuscitating Joe Biden on stage at a campaign rally in California. Joe Biden saying Gavin's the guy. He's a national hero. I don't know how else they pull this off. A little bit too movie-esque, I might add, but think about it. That's the kind of thing the American people, not all of them, but a lot of them will eat up. And then how do you challenge that? Everyone's going to say, thank you, Gavin Newsom. No idea, my friends, no idea. Everyone seems to think they know, but trust me, in 6 months, we'll all be saying, I didn't see that one coming. To be fair, though, there is a possibility we all say, I saw this one coming. Maybe it's war. Tucker Carlson seems to think they're going to start hot war with Russia to stop Trump from winning. Well, it's true, statistically, historically, a president during war has a higher chance of getting reelected. Many people are scared to switch presidents during a time of war. I'm also curious that if we do go to war with Russia, Biden just freaks people out. He says the wrong names of countries, and maybe people are going to say, dude, give me anyone else. But maybe that's it. Maybe it's a combination of multiple factors. War with Russia escalates to the point where the U.S. is directly involved through a direct confrontation. Gavin Newsom steps up and says, my state may have its problems, but you know Trump does not have the temperament to deal with a war on this level. I don't know. Some people may argue he's the only one who does. They'll argue that Gavin Newsom doesn't have any foreign policy experience either. I guess we can only sit back, wait and see. But I know a lot of people saying, highlighting the Jill Biden having COVID story is like, yeah, here it comes. Just in time for 2024's election cycle, they're bringing back COVID. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.